Hey friends, I wanted to do an impromptu tier list video now that we have the prism subclasses in PvP. This is a PvP centric video. Don't care about the PvE side. This is a good video to do dishes to or whatever. So yeah, let's jump into it. What you see on screen right now was my season 22 tier list. I don't think I did one in season 23, and now we're at episode 1, which would have been season 24 if I'm not mistaken. So let's talk about some changes already. The S plus tier had Bubble and Well there because those supers were the fastest and borderline uncontestable unless you also had a super, but because of the length of the game modes, they could just end the match entirely, as well as the subclasses themselves beyond the super were also very good. Basically, you wouldn't ever question if a Sentinel Titan or a Dawnblade wanted to join your team. You would just say yes because it's a net benefit and there's not a weakness with their kit. In addition to this season, the Sentinel Titan got the Unbreakable aspect, which is like a turning your grenade into a reflective shield. It's okay. It gets really abusive though with the Prism class item and Ursa Furiosa. Just don't see many Titans tapping into that. And then Dawnblade got the Hellion aspect, which is very useful in my opinion for Blink, which Dawnblade doesn't have. That's yet another Prism Warlock setup. Bubble and Well got nerfed, but Well is essentially unnerfed because all the combos to kill it don't kill it, still, before and after, whereas Bubble got a significant nerf. It is noticeable. You can 1v1 a Bubble and come out on top. You cannot do the same thing with a Well unless you really know what you're doing, have a bunch of cooldowns, and very specific weapons. So for that reason, I would say that it falls down a tier. But we also got some new supers. We have the throwing axes, which is like throwing 3 mini Nova Bombs, but you have to be stationary, and then Song of Flame. The new supers on all 3 of the subclasses are borderline broken. I believe that was the Arc Staff that it also got added. I don't know if there's a realistic counter to that. Maybe you just feel like you auto lose if they catch you with it. So some reminders of how I structure the tier list. D tier doesn't mean that you automatically lose. It just means you have to make less mistakes and it might have less coverage for the meta. It might also require huge investments for a 1v2 or more. S tier doesn't always mean auto win. It just means you can make more mistakes, or it also has a realistic higher floor and ceiling. The plus usually means that you'll take it on your team, no question, and the minus usually means that it has some extra bit of organization or coordination within a team, but it can stand toe-to-toe with triple plus. You just have to balance it more. Like you might have one Omnioculus Hunter, one Behemoth, and one Shadebinder. I don't know, I just made that up. I don't actually think that's like the most competitive S tier comp, but that's what the minus usually means. It's a building block for a team. Let's talk about some other changes. Gunslinger has the new lightweight knife. It gets 2 of them. They're better. And then it also got a swarm grenade buff. And you know that Prism Hunter is taking advantage of that swarm buff. Arc Strider got a new aspect that lets it helicopter, Ascension. It is incredible, reminds me of the Veda Arc Strider, and it also gives Amplified to the Hunter, which opens up a couple team play lines, but also really good solo movement when it comes to things like Radiant Dance Machines, Frosties, Six Coyote, Blink, etc. It is just a huge upgrade to this. Missile Titan got a flashbang buff, or rather the Arc Kit got a flashbang buff, but because this has the enhanced grenades, it's the most noticeable. Strand Hunter got a dive nerf, and there is a Widow's Silk bug. Rather, if you have anything that backpacks 2 abilities, there's just a chance on death that it removes the partial charge, and you're only spawning in with 1 charge instead of, let's say, 1.5 charges. The Stasis classes got the Overshield nerfed or changed, I guess, to be some form of resist, as well as, it's called Frost Armor, as well as the fragments that gave you resist just for being near a crystal or something are gone. So for that reason, they are weaker, but I'm not saying they're necessarily knocked down a tier. I experimented with a build that used the, what are they called, Dumbledores, Valador's Wrathweavers, You can sort of do the same plus 40 Titan shenanigans, but you have to have 3 Shadebinders, which is normally a throw because you're not getting 3 Shadebinder supers before 3 Dawnblades. However, having 1 on the team makes sense. It's just the spammy nature of Valadors and chaining it between each other doesn't really apply here because you're giving up the super. You could run Prism for that setup, but I don't think it's worth it either. Long story short, it got changed to have a couple new niche interactions, but overall I think it was a slight nerf to Stasis. Void Hunter got a significant smoke buff, and Prism Hunter has access to that. It is incredibly more potent. I used to think of these more as a radar ping, but now I think of them as a flashbang grenade because they just can't see anything if they're even remotely close to that smoke cloud. I think that covers most of the changes for this episode, so let's just place the Prism classes now. All of them are F tier. They're terrible. No, I'm just kidding. All of them are S+, you already knew this. And I do think this knocks down Void Titan to S-. It's now a conditional class. Dawnblade is up here. And Shadebinder might even go down because Prism Warlock has a faster super. There was an exception. We already saw some meta progression with the Speaker Helmet. The Speaker Helmet spams so much healing that they were essentially immortal. So the one way to kill them was using Shadebinder with Ice Flare Bolts. And although Prism does have access to the Shadebinder melee, the Frost Pulse and Ice Flare Bolts combined with the conditional Finality Shotgun is crazy consistent, and for that reason, I still think it deserves to be an S tier even though the Speaker Helmet got nerfed. That was the theory of why it deserved to be here in the first place, and it came up this season. The next one that I think moves up is Broodweaver. Armor Lock is such a good anti-BS setup. If the hunter puts a clone, a smoke, and a swarm nade, eat it for breakfast with this. It's great. The only thing I don't like about this class is the super. It's going to be slow charging because you're going to put all your stats into strength, and I don't even like its matchup across the entire game because ultimately you're going to have to deal with the throwing axes or the Arc Strider super on Prism or Song of Flame, and I don't like my odds for any of those with the super. But having one Broodweaver on a team to act as a Minesweeper is so worth it. I'm also going to move Striker Titan down a tier because Prism Titan did get knockout and it has arguably an easier startup combo of being able to use the Behemoth melee, fly in, and get a Diamond Lance for using a 1-2 punch knockout combo. So that first almost free kill leads to a second almost free kill. That is why it is S tier. It is wildly consistent. But if you have the goated class item like I would in game, let me go show you this. Armamentarium plus Bear. I think this is very meta when you use it with the Unbreakable aspect because you sort of do the same Minesweeper thing as Weavewalk. You just get super energy for it. So I think having one of these on a team is worth it if you're trying to rush the super game in order to use Twilight Arsenal or maybe Missile to drop an Orbalite to springboard the game to just win from there. Next up, I would both move these two down. I would move Invis up. I would move Titan down, maybe even 2 tiers. Gunslinger stays. Arc Strider moves up to A+. Stormcaller falls. Behemoth had a significant Cryoclasm change. It's not as intuitive to me, but I know there are Behemoth mains who make it work. So I'm going to reserve judgment on it. My personal opinion, I would throw this down here because that's just not usable to me. But I do see other people getting results, so I have to respect it. I'm also going to move Stasis Hunter down a tier because really thinking about it, part of the reason I valued this is Shatter Dive and Bakris. Shatter Dive just to be able to permanently third person. It's a Descender. It's very, very solid. Then it has the good grenades for getting off angles on an opposing team. I am talking it up here, but I think it's on the same tier as Gunslinger relative to the Prism classes, or the new S tier. In that regard too, I think I do want to drop down Voidwalker, because really what it brings to the table now is full power Devour and the Void Soul. The Void Soul is really good. Let me contemplate this. Yeah, I think I'm comfortable getting rid of the A minus tier. So now we have the lone Strand Titan, and I think just having access to the grapple grenade is what's holding it here for me. That is just so potent, especially if you combine it with a glaive, feedback fence, etc. Even Final Warning Lion Rampant puts in work. And I'm going to say this was just a skill issue for me. It is a little more potent than I'm giving it credit. I think we go up to B. I want to organize this in order of potency as well from left to right. So, gun to my head commentary, I think Dawnblade's still my king, then Prism Hunter, then Prism Titan, then Warlock. And Warlock having access to the throwable stasis turrets also influenced my decision a little bit if I were to put it ahead of Titan, but I just cannot deny how uncounterable that behemoth melee feels right now. I would put Strand Hunter, Shadebinder. No, I would even put Broodweaver ahead of Shadebinder. Yeah, I like that order. And then our B tier order. Something like that. And then our D tier order is already what I would order it in. Let's talk about the tragedy of Arc Warlock real quick. Its only remaining niche is the Arc Soul. Arc Titan took its grenades from it in that rework. And then Prism Warlock took its Lightning Surge ability away from it and just offering more overall kit. I just think it's like almost any way you could justify this, Prism Warlock's just better doing the same thing. I think I'm content with where this tier list is right now. Obviously, this doesn't represent everything you see in your day-to-day play because not everybody plays at the skill ceiling. If I had to say what you're seeing at the day-to-day play, you're just seeing Prism Hunter because the accessibility floor is so accessible that you just throw a smoke and a swarm grenade and you've already done a lot of work. That being said, though, when you have teams repeatedly screaming each other over and over again, I think there is more representation right now, but that doesn't mean that the relative power level of the game right now is more fun to those players. I think we got power crept across the board in a way that makes the game less interesting to be competitive, not more. That being said, from a casual standpoint, Prism has brought so much creativity to the game. There are so many new combinations that I would say hover in the A to C range of builds that you can still just enjoy them in casual PvP and have fun piloting them. That's like my outlook so far. Obviously, I wish Bungie would balance the game a little bit better, remove some of the rough edges of a lot of these subclasses, the pain points. But I don't know how realistic that is this far into the game. There's just so much bloat. They change one thing and it might break 5 others and take them from what would be A tier all the way to F. I haven't even put anything in the F tier because nothing really feels like it's a liability on my team. Everything feels like it can hang if you pilot it toward the ceiling. So those are my closing notes on the tier list. I hope you enjoyed listening to me ramble. I will see y'all in the next.